looking at various measures of statistics. And to briefly review those, we have our central measures, which include our mean, our median, and our mode. And for dispersion, we have range, we have variance, and we have standard deviation. And to go over our symbols, generally median is just MED. Mean can be mu, or sometimes, depending, X bar, that's an X with a little line over the top. Our variance is basically that, and our standard deviation is that right there, if we were to take a look at the symbols. Sometimes for variance and standard deviation, it's S squared and S. It just depends. Well, actually, it's not going to impact us too much, but the ones on the left with the Greek letters, those are for if your statistics represent a whole population, and the ones on the right are the symbols if it represents a sample. But for what we're doing today, it's really not going to matter. So here I've set up some data, and we've gone over how to find these all by hand. But especially if we have a lot of data, the formulas to find it can be very cumbersome, take a long time, it's a lot to write, and if you mess up one thing, well then you're done, you got the wrong answer, and you might not even know it. So we want to go over today how to use the calculator. Now, this video is on using the Casio, and the next one will be on how to use the TI. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the calculator, and I'm going to go to the menu, and I'm going to go over here to statistics. And I'll see that I have some lists right here. Now, if these lists aren't here, you're going to have to repopulate them. Probably the fastest way to repopulate your list is just to reset the calculator. So I have some data already in here, and I don't want any of this data, so I'm going to delete all. And I'm going to go over here and delete all. And I'm going to construct a table based upon this. Now, I don't have to put the table in any particular order, but I see that I have a 3. So I'm going to put in a 3 in the first list. And I see that I have a 10, but let's see. It looks like I have 3 10s. So I'm going to put in a 10. And then over here in list 2, now I only had 1 3, but I do have 3 10s. Okay, so list 1 is basically my data, and list 2 is going to be the frequency. 11, now it looks like I have 1, 2, 2 11s. So put in 11, and then over here I'll put in 2 because I have 2 of them. All right, 9, and it looks like I only have 1 9, and you may want to actually cross things off as you get them. All right, 1 9, 16. It looks like I only have 1 16. So of course, if you don't count these right, then that will mess this up. 16, and then we have 20. 20 seems to happen twice. And then if I look here, 24, that happens once. And then I have 20, 11, 10. I already put those in. Just want to make sure I've counted right. 32 happens 1 time. 35 happens 1 time. 5 happens 1 time. 8 happens 1 time. 19 happens 1 time. A lot of 1 times. So there might have been perhaps an easier way to put this in. I probably could have just listed them all and then just had a bunch of 1s. But that's okay. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to come over here to the second list and fill in all the 1s starting at 32. That's an 8, yep. And we have our 19. So basically, we're just going to put this into the calculator. So a little bit tedious right there, but going to be a lot easier than writing out the formula for mean and standard deviation and variance. Okay, so we have all our data in. Now, as a quick check, I do see that I have 20 pieces of data. Now, over here on my calculator, I am going to want to calculate something. So I'm going to press the arrow until I see this calc button. And that's on mine, it's on F2, but it might be on something different on yours. I'm going to press that. And first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to look at this setup and make sure it's set up correctly. So I'm doing one variable statistics. So that's what I'm interested in. My X list is list 1, and my frequency list is list 2. Now, if I'd listed my data a different way, which I'll show in a second, we might change this. We could change these to anything that we want. But list 1 is each of our pieces of data, and list 2 is our frequencies. So that's set up good. All right, so now I'm going to do one bar stats, and it has now calculated everything for me. So this first one, X with the line over it, that's our mean. So 17 is our mean. So mean is 17. Point 1. Okay, this is the sum of each of our numbers. So if I add them all up, I do get 342. This one, this is the one that we want. This is our standard deviation. It's 10.35 about. Now notice the calculator has not given me the variance. So if I want the variance, I'm going to have to square that. And just to double check, N is 20. That means I had 20 pieces of data, so that's good. If this were not 20, I know that I haven't put something in right. All right, min X, this is my smallest value. So the smallest value that I have is 3. Q1, so I could use this to make my box and whisker plot, is 10. My median is 14. So median is 14. And my Q3, see, it's giving me all this. So I could use this min X, Q1, median, Q3, and max X, 43, to do my box and whisker plot if I wanted. Mode is 10. So mode is 10. And basically, I've gotten the calculator to do all of the heavy lifting for me. Okay, so what if I put in this data differently? So I'm going to leave list 2. Actually, I'm just going to delete everything and pretend that, we just started this question all over again. And maybe instead of counting these, I don't want to count all that. Maybe I'm just going to do like 3, 10, 11. This is a fast way to put it in. 9, 16. And the reason I'm going to do it this way instead of counting how many times each of these happens is because the data seems pretty random. It's not in a table or anything. So it's probably just faster to type it in like this. Now, it shouldn't change the answer. Now, I want to make sure that I don't miss any right here. Okay, so I have my 20 pieces of data, and now, again, I'm going to go press this over key until I get to calc. And I'm going to go ahead and do my setup. Always check the setup. Now this time I didn't populate list 2. So I'm not going to use it. So if I highlight this, I could tell it to use a 1. So that means that each of these data happens one time. Well, I listed 10 3 times. I listed 11 twice. So I'm going to put a 1 right there. All right, now I do my 1 bar, and I get the same answer. Nothing has changed. All right, let's take a look at another example. So here I have a table of data. I have an X and a frequency. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this data, but before I put it in, of course, I'm going to clear out the data that I have, and I'm going to type in 170, 180. So if our data is already in a table, we're definitely going to use list 1 to be the data itself, and list 2 to be our frequencies. So I'm going to finish typing this in, and then we'll have only one more example after this. So 4 times for the 170, 10 times, 6 times, 3 times, 2, 1, 4, 2. All right, so I'm going to now press this over key until I find calc. I'm always going to check my setup. And this time, I'm not going to populate list 2 with a bunch of 1s. I want to actually use which list that has the frequency, so it's list 2. And now I'll exit and go ahead and do my one variable statistics. So my mean is 28 or 208. Okay, my standard deviation is 41.2. And here's my low. So if I wanted my range, I would do max X minus min X. So that would be 130. Okay, my median is 190. I'm not putting these in any order, so that's actually pretty terrible. Make sure everything's organized nice and neat. Your central measures should be together, and your measures of dispersion should be together. It's just easier to read that way. Our mode is 180, which we would expect, because if I look at my table, 180 happens 10 times. So mode 180. Now, if I wanted my variance, I'll get out of this, and I would do my standard deviation, which was 41.2. I would want to get more decimal points than that. And if I square it, I get my variance. So 1,697. Okay, and that wraps that one up. So one more example, maybe I have a probability distribution, meaning I don't have the frequencies. Does that really change anything? And the answer is no. So once more on the calculator, I'm going to go to my menu, and I'm going to go to the statistics. I'm going to clear out these two lists. So I'm going to press this over key until I find delete all. I'm going to delete everything that's in there. I want to be careful I don't actually delete the lists themselves. And now I'm going to put in my table. So I have 16, 20, 26, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then at the right, I'm going to put in my probabilities. So the list 2 doesn't necessarily have to be a frequency. It could be the probabilities. It makes no difference to the calculator. Now, just as a check, these probabilities, in order for this to work, these probabilities all have to add up and equal 1 or 100%. Okay, so I've put that in, hopefully correctly. And I'm going to press over until I find calc. I'm going to set up, all right? List 1 is my data, list 2 is my frequency, or in this case, my probabilities, and one variable stats. And now my calculator has popped out all the statistics that I could be looking for. So if you're asked on a question to show some work, you could start out with your formulas and then use your calculator to get the final answer. or just use the calculator to check, or in some cases, just use it to get the answer. It just depends on what the directions have asked you to do.